The worst thing they ever did was leave you alive. They thought they were walking away from something weak, something they could forget. But what they left behind wasn't you. It was the echo of 1,000 nights you sat in silence, drowning in questions no one cared to answer. You didn't become this cold on your own. You were trained by the silence, shaped by the absence, forged in the fire of everything they took. They say you changed. No, you uncovered. You peeled back every soft layer that protected them from the truth of who you are. The one that watched, the one that endured, the one that didn't break. The betrayal didn't kill you. It killed the illusion. Now, you see clearly. They were never going to stay. They were never going to love you the way you did them. And somewhere deep inside, you always knew that. That's the part that hurts the most. The part that knew, but still hoped. You watched them leave like it meant nothing. You watched them laugh like you never mattered. And yet, here you are, still breathing, still standing, still silent, but not the same. You were not broken. You were being forged. You see, people don't understand what it does to someone when they take everything away, when they leave you in the dark without so much as a goodbye. It doesn't just hurt, it changes your bones, your thoughts, your heartbeat. And now they wouldn't recognize you. You've stopped trying to explain yourself. You've stopped begging to be understood. Because somewhere between the pain and the silence, you found something far more powerful than their validation. You found you, the you that doesn't flinch. The you that doesn't chase. The you that doesn't need their permission to breathe. They thought they were punishing you by leaving. What they didn't know is that loss doesn't destroy the strong. It reveals them. If you had never lost everything, you would have never seen who you really are. And now that you know, there's no going back. So tell me, who hurt you enough to create this version of you? You wake up, and the world feels empty. Not quiet. Empty. There's a difference. Quiet is peace. But emptiness, that's a scream no one can hear. That's the weight in your chest when you walk into a room and feel more alone surrounded by people than when you're completely by yourself. You smiled. You laughed. You nodded when they asked if you were okay. But inside, you were shattering in slow motion. You kept telling yourself it was just a bad day. But those days turned into weeks. The silence grew teeth. It started chewing through your thoughts, your memories, your identity. People always talk about heartbreak like it's some explosion. But no, heartbreak is silent. It's slow. It rots you from the inside out. And the worst part, no one notices. You keep looking in the mirror hoping to find the person you used to be. They're gone. They died the moment you realized no one was coming to save you. The moment you stopped being anyone's priority. The moment you learned that closure doesn't come. Never does. You begged for answers that never came. You reread messages like they held some kind of hidden key. You stayed awake, staring at your phone, heart pounding at every vibration, thinking maybe, just maybe, but no one came back. And you got really good at pretending. Pretending to laugh, pretending to move on, pretending you weren't carrying a war inside your chest every single day. You buried that pain so deep, even you forgot how much it hurt. But it's still there, in every fake smile, in every "I'm fine," in every sleepless night where your mind replays the same moment over and over, wondering what you could have done differently. You didn't deserve it. And deep down, you know that. But that doesn't change the silence, the cold, the hollowness left behind when someone walks away without looking back. And now, you don't cry about it anymore. You just sit with it. Quiet, still, detached. But listen to me. That silence, it didn't break you. It built you. Because in that silence, you learned something no one else did. You learned how to stand without support. You learned how to keep walking when no one cheered for you. You learned that sometimes, the only closure you get is realizing they were never meant to stay. That silence became your teacher, your companion. And now, it's your weapon. Because now you're not just quiet, you're calculating. Not just alone, but aware. Not just surviving, but evolving. So I'll ask you this. Are you ready to stop surviving and start becoming? Loss is a professor. Brutal, honest, cold. It doesn't speak in soft voices. It doesn't hand out lessons gently. No. It tears things from you. People, dreams, parts of yourself. And then it waits, quietly, watching to see what you'll do without them. That's what makes it the most honest teacher in the world. Because everything you thought you needed, takes, and everything you thought you were, it burns. You thought you had real friends. You thought that love meant loyalty. You thought that if you gave your best, people would stay. But now you know. You gave too much. You believed too hard. You held on to people who were already halfway out the door. And they smiled while doing it. They made you believe you were safe, only to step back and watch you fall. And when you looked up for help, they were gone. The people you thought would carry you vanished. The ones who promised forever forgot you like a name scratched in dust. You needed loss to see that. Because loss doesn't just take, it reveals. It strips away every illusion, every excuse, every fantasy. You see people for who they are. And more importantly, you see yourself. Not the version they liked. Not the version that played nice, stayed quiet, made sure everyone else was okay. Number, you see the one that survived. You see the one that screamed in silence. The one that walked through hell with no map. The one that was left behind and still kept going. That version of you, that's the real one. And maybe the old you had to die for that version to rise. They weren't your people. They were your poison. They weren't your support system. They were the weight keeping you from flying. And you didn't lose them. You escaped them. There's this story I've kept locked inside. About a man who lost everything. Not in a dramatic explosion. Not in a movie moment. But in silence. His friends drifted away. His love disappeared without warning. His name stopped being spoken. He became invisible. So he vanished. No posts, no messages, no explanations. People said he was weak, that he ran. But what they didn't know is that he was becoming something else. In the dark, he studied. In the silence, he rebuilt. In the pain, he sharpened himself like steel. He let go of everything that wasn't real until the only thing left was truth. And when he returned, he didn't speak. He didn't explain. He let his presence say everything. He didn't come back for revenge. He came back as a reminder. A ghost, a shadow, a storm in the shape of a man. And the ones who forgot him, they remembered. But it was too late. You see, when you rise from that kind of loss, you don't owe anyone a version of you they once recognized. You come back as a question they can't answer. And that's who you're becoming. Loss carved out everything fake inside of you. And in its place, it left space. Space for power, for focus, for hunger. Pain didn't destroy you. It cleared the path. Now look around. Look at what's gone. It's not a graveyard. It's not the end. It's a garden. Fresh soil. Clean air. And you're not buried. You're planted. So what will you grow into now? There comes a moment when something inside you snaps. Not loud, not wild. Quiet, controlled. A switch flicked in the dark. You stop apologizing. You stop explaining your pain to people who only listen to twist it. You stop handing out pieces of yourself like they're worthless. You realize they never understood because they never wanted to. And suddenly, the need to be understood disappears. That's the shift. That's the moment prey becomes predator. You were never weak. You were distracted. Distracted by wanting to be loved, to be accepted, to be chosen. You kept playing small because you thought it made you kind. You let them talk down to you, use you, walk away from you, because you thought staying soft made you strong. But now you know the truth. Kindness made them blind. Pain made you see. You watched people show their true faces when they thought you had nothing left to offer. You watched loyalty vanish the moment you weren't useful. You learned the game, the hard way. But that's what made you dangerous. Because you don't chase now. You build. You don't talk. You move. You don't seek revenge through noise. You let your evolution be the punishment. Every day you train while they scroll. You learn while they gossip. You stay silent while they stay the same. You don't want attention anymore. You want power. Power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't beg to be seen. It waits. It watches. It arrives when it's already too late. You were the sheep they laughed at. Now you're the wolf they fear. The one who doesn't need the pack. The one who walks alone. Not because they're lost, but because no one else was willing to go that deep into the dark. And here's the thing. You like it there now. The silence, the solitude, the hunger. It feels like home. Because when you were surrounded by people, you were starving for realness. Now in the shadows, you feast on discipline, purpose, and clarity. You've replaced comfort with growth, pleasure with pain, noise with precision. The world doesn't know what to do with someone who can't be manipulated anymore. They can't guilt you, can't bait you, can't reach you. You're not angry. You're aware. And awareness is lethal. Because now, you see through everything. You see fake love before it smiles. You hear the lies before they're spoken. You feel the shift in a room before anyone even says a word. You're sharper, colder, focused, but not broken. Never broken. You didn't become heartless. You just stopped handing it to people who never earned it. You kept begging the world to love a version of you that was fake. A version built on survival, light smiles, forced silence, agreeing just to be accepted, numbing your fire to keep others warm, shrinking your soul so they'd feel tall. You thought if you just gave enough, someone would stay, someone would choose you. But they didn't. Because they were never choosing you. They were choosing the mask you wore. And one day, it cracked. Not all at once. Not with a scream. But slowly, quietly. With every betrayal, every cold goodbye. Every night you stared at the ceiling, wondering why you still weren't enough. That version of you died. And I know you mourned it. You stood at the funeral of your old self. Heart shattered, eyes burning, grieving the years you wasted trying to be what they wanted. Grieving the time you lost, pretending to be okay. But that pain, that wasn't the end. That was the ritual. The fire didn't come to destroy you. It came to strip you of the weakness, of the fear, of the illusions. Because phoenixes don't cry when they burn. They rise when the fire ends. Let me tell you something. There was a boy once. Quiet, soft-spoken. Bullied for the way he looked. For the way he walked. For the way he felt everything too deeply. He sat alone at lunch. Spent birthdays with no one. Got used to the sound of silence instead of celebration. He tried to fit in. He wore the right clothes, said the right things, laughed at the wrong jokes just to be accepted. And it never worked. Eventually, he gave up. He disappeared. Not physically, spiritually. He stopped trying to please, stopped trying to belong, stopped pretending. And for 10 years, he vanished. Into books, into weights, into late nights and early mornings, into pain, hunger, solitude. He built himself in the shadows. And when he returned, no one recognized him. Not because he looked different, because he was different. His presence hit harder than any words. His silence louder than their laughter used to be. They remembered how they treated him. And now, he didn't care. He didn't need revenge. He was revenge. See, that's what happens when the person you used to be dies. You don't come back for attention. You come back as the proof that you never needed them, that their absence was your oxygen. You rise with fire under your skin and steel in your spine. You don't look for closure. You're the ending. You don't chase love. You embody it, and the world feels it. Even if they can't explain it, they feel it. The energy of someone who went through hell and didn't just survive, but built a throne in the ashes. So I'll ask you something you've never been asked honestly. If you could finally bury your old self, who would you become? Revenge doesn't scream. It doesn't beg to be seen. It doesn't post or rant or make a scene. Real revenge is quiet, calculated, unseen until it's too late. You think strength is loud because the world taught you that volume means power. But the truth is, power whispers. Real power moves in silence. Real power doesn't chase applause. It lets the results echo. You used to want them to hear you. You wanted to explain your side, to tell them how much it hurt, to make them understand the weight of what they did to you. But they wouldn't have listened. They weren't meant to. And now, you've stopped explaining. Because the lion doesn't explain itself to sheep. It watches, it waits, it hunts. And when the time comes, it doesn't roar. It ends things. You've grown past the need to prove anything. You don't need them to regret what they did. You don't need them to apologize. You don't need them to say your name with respect. You need nothing from them. Because your silence, that's the punishment. They're not haunted by what you said. They're haunted by what you didn't. They look for signs of your failure. They wonder if you're still broken. They ask others about you, pretending they don't care. But they care. Because the one thing more terrifying than a person screaming in pain is the person who went quiet and never came back. You see, emotions, they were your weakness once. Now, you've turned them into tools. You're no longer emotional. You're surgical. You cut away what doesn't serve you. You eliminate distractions. You walk through fire, not because you enjoy the heat, but because you become it. Success is your only reply. Peace is your weapon. Progress is your language. You no longer waste time explaining your pain. You simply become the person no one thought you could. And when they see you again, when they realize you made it, when they feel that presence, calm, collected, untouchable, they won't know what to say. And that's the point. Let them guess. Let them replay every last word they said to you. Let them regret thinking you'd stay down forever. Don't tell them you've changed. Make them wonder if you're still alive. You wanted to disappear. You thought if you just vanished, maybe the pain would stop. Maybe they'd notice. Maybe they'd care. Maybe the silence would echo loud enough to make them come back. But they didn't. And the pain didn't stop. It got worse. It clawed through your chest and forced you to confront every broken part of yourself. Alone. But here's the thing about people like you. You don't stay buried. You rise. Not in a blaze of glory, but in slow, calculated silence. You collect every scar. You wear every bruise. You stitch yourself back together with fire in your blood. And now, you're not the victim. You're not the outcast. You're not the afterthought. You're the fire they can't escape. They feel it. Every time your name comes up in a room, they flinch. Every time they scroll past someone who reminds them of you, they hesitate. Every time they close their eyes, they remember what they lost. You're not a memory. You're a storm they now have to live with. Because you didn't just survive, you transformed. They broke you open thinking you'd bleed out. But you didn't. You bled steel. You bled silence. You bled purpose. And when you walk now, the ground remembers your pain. The air changes. The shadows bend around you. You wanted them to regret it? They do. Every single day. Not because of what you said. You didn't say anything. Not because of what you did. You did nothing. But because of who you became. You became everything they tried to keep you from becoming. You became what they never expected. You became proof that their betrayal wasn't the ending. It was the ignition. You don't need to go back and prove anything. You are the proof. Your existence is the revenge. Your strength is the echo. Your silence is the scream they hear in every quiet room. They don't know how to approach you anymore. Not because you're dangerous, but because you're untouchable. You've elevated beyond the version of you they tried to destroy. They underestimated the wrong soul. And now they'll live with that. Because you didn't need revenge. You just needed time. And time is colder than rage. Time is quieter than hate. Time is a slow burn. And you became the fire. So let me ask you one thing. Now that you've walked through hell, now that you've survived the silence, now that you've risen into something untouchable, what will you do now? That nothing can hurt you anymore. Pain isn't your enemy. It's your training ground. It's the place you were forged, where your skin stopped being soft, and your soul stopped begging to be loved. You used to think pain meant you were losing, that hurting meant you were weak. But now you know. Pain is the cost of power, and the people who fear you now, it's not your strength they're afraid of. It's your story. Because they watched you fall. They watched you break. They thought they were there for your final chapter. What they didn't know is that it was just the preface. They laughed when you disappeared. But silence was your strategy. Loneliness was your ally. The absence they gave you, you turned it into discipline. Every tear, repurposed. Every memory, repackaged. Every scar, redefined. They thought you were done. They broke you, thinking you'd stay broken. They didn't see what happened behind closed doors, when no one checked in, when no one believed in you, when all you had was your pain and a reason not to give up. You trained while they forgot you. You planned while they gossiped. You built while they laughed. Now they see someone else, someone colder, stronger, still quiet, but never again weak. They try to understand how you did it, how you rose, how you survived. But they won't understand, because they didn't feel the weight you carried. They didn't hear the thoughts that tried to end you. They didn't face the mirror at 3 a.m., wondering if the pain would ever stop. They didn't walk through hell with no one to call. You did. You walked through fire. And when it tried to consume you, you inhaled the smoke and made it part of you. You learned that the price of authenticity is loneliness. That becoming real means losing everything fake. That once you stop needing the world to accept you, you start becoming someone they can't ignore. So now when they look at you, they don't see pain. They see presence, power, proof. They fear you. Not because you're cruel, not because you're violent, but because you don't need them anymore. And that is terrifying. They can't guilt you. They can't shame you. They can't control you. Because you've already lived through the worst version of yourself. And now, everything else is just noise. You know who you are. And you know what it cost. Most people don't fear your pain. They fear the person it made you. The one who knows how to be alone. The one who doesn't flinch. The one who doesn't seek permission to exist. So let them wonder. Let them whisper. Let them remember who you used to be. Because this version of you, the one built in silence, the one born from ashes, the one whose scars have become armor, you became the storm. Loss was never the end. It felt like it. In the beginning, when everything collapsed and the people you needed the most walked away without hesitation. When the silence felt heavier than death. When you stood at the edge of who you were and watched it all fall apart. But it wasn't the end. It was the doorway. A violent, unwanted, holy doorway. Because when you lose everything, you find the truth. And the truth is, you never needed them. You never needed to be liked. You never needed to be understood. You needed to be woken up. Loss did that for you. Not gently, not kindly, but effectively. It stripped the lies, ripped off the mask, crushed every illusion you clung to. When it was done, you were finally real. Nothing teaches people faster than loss. Because nothing strips away the lies faster than pain. Pain doesn't lie. It doesn't flatter. It doesn't pretend. It shows you who's real. It shows you who you are. And if you're paying attention, it shows you who you're meant to become. They thought they ended you. They started you. Everything they took gave you clarity. Everything they said gave you focus. Every empty room, every unanswered call, every silent betrayal, it carved you into something sharper, cleaner, unstoppable. You became the person they always feared you might. The version of yourself you buried for their comfort. The you that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't need. And now, they don't know what to do with that. They see you and realize they fed the fire. They handed you the blade. They gave you every reason to rise. So rise louder, rise harder, rise without making a single sound. Let your existence speak in ways words never could. Let your silence echo where your screams once lived. And now, if this video spoke to your soul, subscribe. If you felt something wake up inside you, like it. Share it with the one who left you for dead. And in the comments, tell me, what pain did they give you? And what power did you turn it into? They should have never let you survive.